continuing on our journey into and through Metta yet again. Always good to come around again. I always see it like coming around a mountain and circling around a mountain. I keep coming around to the same side, but I always have a little different perspective each time from a different height or a different angle. And so hopefully we come at this with renewed perspective. And there's a story about the Buddha at a time when he was holding an annual retreat in the Jetta Grove, to which the monastics from all over the country had traveled. And as the story goes, he sent 60 monks out into a remote forest to practice meditation. And generous members of the community around the forest had built huts for the monks. But the forest spirits who lived there weren't really happy with this disruption of their environment. And they decided they would conjure fearful images to frighten the monks away, and it worked. The monks became frightened and they fled back to the Jetta Grove to ask the Buddha what to do. So the Buddha said, well, you went without a weapon. This time you'll need to be armed. And what he armed them with was the discourse on loving kindness, the Karanya Metta Sutta, and advised them to recite it 8 times each month. And I'll put a link to that in the chat box a little later. And so the monks went back and diligently recited the sutta. And the spirits were transformed, and instead of causing trouble, they began protecting the monks from the dangers of the forest. And the villagers were really happy that the spirits weren't being scary and felt especially appreciative of the monks' peaceful demeanors and kindness. So, what does that story mean for us today? Well, one thing that I thought about in considering this story was that the Buddha did not give the monks an external weapon. He wasn't an arms dealer, no guns, no AK, whatevers, just the Metta Sutta, a weapon that would do no harm to or kill the spirits. He gave them an internal weapon to transform themselves so that these spirits would respond to them in a different way. So as David mentioned, practicing the action of metta, the monks behaved in a more kindly and friendly way to the spirits. But they also meditated on the embodied sense of kind friendliness. So metta was practiced both as an action practice and a concentration practice. And when we look at the first part of the Metta Sutta, it kind of tells us where to begin our travels into this practice. And what it states is that this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. So this is someone who's already practiced. And practiced what? Skilled in goodness, the morality, the ethical practices that we've already talked about in the paramitas, but also in the Eightfold Path. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful. So this is not a newbie. This is somebody who's been practicing for a while, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. And this is what we've been doing, practicing here. This is what we've been cultivating, our holding environment, creating a safe, calm, welcoming place for us to venture out from which we can go to the forest, go out into the world, into our lives with a bit more kindliness. And as David pointed out, this is connected with all the other paramis as well as the Eightfold Path, able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, practicing the morality practices, the morality parami, behaving ethically, wise action, wise speech, wise livelihood, the parami of truthfulness, not succumbing to greed, practicing the parami of generosity, letting mindfulness and humility come to the fore, refraining from getting caught up in our small conditioned perspectives and stories. When we can tap into our own ease and contentment and gladness, feel the embodied experience of being kind to ourselves, then we can emanate this to others. In the story of the forest spirits, the Buddha instructs the monks to cultivate love within themselves first, and then let that kindness reflect outward. As we can come to wish peace, happiness, and joy for ourselves, we come to understand more deeply that all beings must wish for these qualities as well. And metta will arise naturally within us. Again, to quote the Buddha, he says, I visited all quarters within my mind. In other words, I explored my whole consciousness, nor found I any dearer than myself. I didn't find anybody in all that exploration that was dearer to me than myself. Self is likewise to every other dear. Everybody else feels the same way. We have this in common. Everybody else cares for themselves more dearly, most dearly. Who loves himself will never harm another. If I realize that the way I care for myself is the same way everybody else cares for myself, the same way I want to be happy, every other being wants to be happy, why would I do harm? We're all connected in this. And we've probably all experienced this to some extent when we think about it. When I'm happy, I naturally want others to share in that happiness. I smile spontaneously to people I see. I greet them with more open-heartedness. I'm more generous. In the US, this past weekend was the first weekend of college football. And I love my sports. So I was watching, like, the big game of the weekend was the Colorado Buffaloes against TCU, the underdog Buffaloes. Last year, their record was 1 win and 11 losses, like the worst in all of college, playing a team that had vied for the championship. And guess what? The Buffaloes won. And I could just imagine all those people leaving the stands happy. All the Buffalo fans in Colorado were happy and celebrating and smiling at each other and high-fiving each other. You know, the losing team, not so much. But when we're happy, we want to share that. We all know that feeling in some way, shape, or form. I'm more generous when I'm happy, when I'm in a good mood and I see a homeless person asking for some money. I'm more ready to go in my pocket and donate and contribute. So we practice to keep this sense of open-hearted warmth and friendliness alive within us, to use David's metaphor, to keep those flames kindled in our hearts. So how do we keep this going? Well, traditional practice, invites us to use loving kindness phrases. May I be happy, may I be well, may my loved one be happy and well. Whatever phrases resonate with you. You can be creative and playful here. But traditionally, we focus on first ourselves, a benefactor, a dear friend, a neutral person, a difficult, challenging person, and all beings. But there's also the suggestion in the early writings that, we don't take this rotely. We begin where at the time it's easiest for us to begin. Now, at the time of the Buddha, beginning with the self was an easy thing to do. But in our conditioned culture, beginning with ourselves may be more challenging. We're conditioned to be more self-critical, more negative with ourselves, more harsh with ourselves, less forgiving with ourselves. So begin where your easiest path in is for you. Perhaps as in the Metta Sutta metaphor, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, this is how we should love all beings and ourselves. So maybe it's our children. Maybe it's a benefactor, someone we trust to care for our well-being, or a pet, my cat, or a tree, or a plant. Meet ourselves where we are to nurture our seedlings of kindliness and friendliness. And in other early texts, we're specifically warned not to begin where it's too difficult or where we may have too much attachment. We're cautioned that if we start with a person or being that's too challenging, we'll get tired, we'll get fatigued, we'll get discouraged, we'll give up. Hindrances will arise, doubt. Why am I wishing well to this person? They're not nice to me. Why would I want well, and that doubt will creep in. Or lethargy, oh, this is too hard. It's too tiring. Let me go do something that's more fun, more uplifting. Or restlessness or aversion. Oh, I don't like that person. Let me push them away. So as we practice, we notice these hindrances and difficulties arising and honor them and kindly return to that grounded environment, our holding space, steadying ourselves, returning to comfort and warmth and safety. And once we feel the warmth of the small flames of kindliness regenerate in our hearts, we might use phrases like, just like me. I wish my cat to be safe and free from harm. I also wish that I be safe and free from harm. May we both be safe and cozy and at peace. The hindrance of desire or attachment can also be a particularly tricky one, at least it is for me in the practice. It's so easy for me to switch to a sense of petitionary prayer at times when I'm saying metta phrases, especially if it's towards loved one, as if I'm hoping some omnipotent force would make this happen. Please make my loved one happy. Please let me be without stress and anxiety. Please make this person who is doing harm see the error of their ways. Make it happen. Make it other than what it is. And if I say it more intensely, more quickly, more purposefully, maybe I could change the way others are, the way the world is. And when I notice the embodied experience of this shift, when I move into this mode, my body tightens, my heart clenches, my throat constricts. I notice this shift and realize, oh, what's going on here? Desire and attachment have arrived. So I may also apply metta conditionally, not unconditionally. May I be happy when I get this piece of work done, when I work harder, when I earn more money, when I find the perfect partner, when I get a better job, when I move into a different house. May my loved one be happy when they're more diligent, more considerate, more the way I want them to be. Then they can be happy under my conditions. And I can notice the feeling of part of my heart being held back, being constricted with this conditional metta. At times like this, when I notice in a kindly way without judging myself for being conditional, I play with adding the phrase, just as I am. May I be happy just as I am. May my loved one be peaceful just as they are. And I notice the softening and the opening that happens as I let go of Lori's conditions and let mindful, loving kindliness come to the fore. Or I find phrases that focus on cultivating my open-heartedness rather than the outcome for my loved one. May I keep my heart open to my dear one just as they are. May I meet my loved one with open-hearted kindness just as they are. And when I bring mindful and kindness to the fore, I can begin the journey into the forest. And in the words, once again, of the Metta Sutta, I can cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. So thank you for your kind attention